BoxDot.com, aka Mr. Holla at your motherfucking boy. So Errol Spence calls out Danny Garcia. Alright? Which is very interesting. Very, very interesting. Now, this isn't the first time Errol Spence has called out Danny Garcia. Apparently, Errol Spence has called out Danny Garcia before, but at the time, Danny Garcia, I believe, was first in line. I believe he had the WBC belt, and Danny Garcia was on that shit where he was saying Errol Spence needed to do this, needed to do that in order to be qualified to fight him. He was on that kind of bullshit. All right, we know how much I hate that bullshit. But since then, of course, Errol Spence has now become the IBF belt. Danny Garcia lost his WBC belt. So now the tables have kind of turned in this particular situation. But even with that in mind, Errol Spence still, as the champion of the world, makes it a point to call out Danny Garcia. And I think that this is a very interesting thing here. Okay, very interesting thing. All right, so before I kind of go into the interestingness of that situation, let's talk about the actual fight for a second, because, you know, I've never actually considered the possibility of this fight actually happening for some reason. I just never could picture these two in the ring at the same time. I'm not sure why, but I just never could. You know what I mean? But now that this fight is presented to me at this particular time, of course, the light bulb has gone off in my head. Okay, it's at full brightness, and now I can take the time to ponder a fight between these two guys. And let me just say that I think that this will be a very interesting fight. Now, I know a lot of people are picking Errol Spence to win this fight, and you know, rightfully so. They should. Errol Spence is a beast in there, but I don't think this would be as easy of a fight as a lot of people think it would be. Okay, if you look at Danny Garcia and Errol Spence, that's a very interesting stylistic matchup. Okay, very interesting, because if you look at what Errol Spence does, all right, he's a volume puncher, okay, punches in bunches kind of guy, attrition guy. And then you look at Danny Garcia. Danny Garcia is a counter puncher guy. Okay, he's a catch you up in exchanges guy. Okay, so for a guy like Errol Spence to go up in there with a guy like Danny Garcia, would he be able to fight the same way that he's been fighting thus far in order to be successful in a fight with Danny Garcia? I don't know. I don't know that he could get away with that in a fight with Danny Garcia. Okay, I think that this will be a very interesting fight should it happen. Very, very interesting. And I'm rooting for the fight to go down. But, of course, the fight's not officially made. Of course, we have no answer from Danny Garcia as to what he wants to do when it comes to an Errol Spence matchup. You know? So let's talk about that for a second. Because we know that Danny Garcia in the past has been very selective, very careful about the opponents that he picks going forward. Okay? Hence the name Danny Garcia. Or Cherry Garcia, so I was saying Cherry. Anyway. So we know he's been very selective about his fights. You know, the different fights that he picks to go into. You know? So for him to get an offer to fight Errol Spence at this particular point in time, what does he do? What does he do? Well, I tell you one thing that I don't want Danny Garcia to do. I don't want him to make up any kind of shitty excuse for why he can't fight Errol Spence Jr. Okay? Whatever he says, it shouldn't. I don't want to hear anything about what Errol Spence needs to do in order for him to be qualified to fight you. I don't want to hear no bullshit like that come out your mouth. Because now you're dealing with the welterweight champion of the world. You guys both fight on PBC. You got the same promoter. There's no promotional issues there. You just got to want the fight. Point blank, period. So I don't want to hear any shitty reason for why Danny Garcia would not want to fight Errol Spence, okay? Now, if Danny Garcia is truthful with it, if he says, hey, look, I'm coming off of a loss and I need maybe 2 or 3 more fights in order to be ready to fight a fight of that magnitude, then I can respect that. I can respect Danny Garcia coming out and saying something like that, as opposed to making up some shitty excuse for why he didn't want to fight Errol Spence. You know? Shitty excuse I can't accept. I'll come over here and roast Danny Garcia's ass. But the truth, I can accept. lost. And I understand that. If I was Danny Garcia's manager and I had a fighter and he's just coming off of a loss, I wouldn't toss him right back into a big fight. You know what I mean? Like that, coming off of a loss. I would say, no, my fighter needs to regain his confidence. He needs a few comeback fights. He needs to get back into that winning mentality. All right, in order to be successful. And to me, Danny Garcia has always been the kind of guy where he's always been like a low confidence guy. I don't think Danny Garcia is very confident in his ability. I've always seen that. That's why Danny Garcia has always needed to fight people like Rod Salka and those kind of people in between big fights, because he really needs a confidence booster, in my opinion. So I don't see Danny Garcia as a big confidence guy. So to me, if I'm managing Danny Garcia, I'm telling him that he needs a few comeback fights to put himself in the position to be able to take a fight versus Errol Spence. But I think that Danny Garcia overall, I think he do pretty well in a fight with Errol Spence. I think he do pretty well. I think that the style that Danny Garcia uses could potentially be a problem for Errol Spence. Okay. And I would be very interested to see how Errol Spence adapts to Danny Garcia's style. That would tell me a lot about Errol Spence. Because to me, if he fights the same way he fought against Kell Brook, he could potentially get knocked out with Danny Garcia. Okay? If he fights that way, he could potentially be knocked out by Danny Garcia. I know all the Errol Spence people are going to be looking at me crazy, but look, that's how I think. Okay? So Errol Spence, to beat Danny Garcia, he's going to need to make some adjustments. He's going to need to make some adjustments to beat Danny Garcia, such as Keith Thurman did. So I'd be very interested to see how that fight goes on. I think a Danny Garcia fight would be a good barometer as to what level Errol Spence is actually on, okay? Skill-wise. That would tell me a lot of what I need to know about Errol Spence Jr. You know what I mean? So I think that this will be a very good fight. Should the fight actually happen? I don't think it'll happen though. Given Danny Garcia's history, I don't see him taking a fight like this right after a loss. You know what I mean? Even though Errol Spence has the belt, it'd just be too big of a risk for his career to take a fight like this. You know what I mean? Because you lose two back-to-back fights. You know what I mean? You're really, you're really, it's really not a good look. You know what I mean? 2 fights back to back. You know what I mean? But on the other side of it, I mean, you get a shot right at the belt. If you can somehow pull out the victory versus Errol Spence, you're right back in there for a Keith Thurman fight, a unification fight. Okay? You're right back at the top of the division. You lose your fight and you're right back in the contention. So, the risk versus reward factor is there, But I can see it both ways, all right? If Danny Garcia wanted to take a few comeback fights before fighting a fight like that, I get it. You know what I mean? But also, man, the thing to take into consideration is, look, there's no guarantees that anyone gets another shot at the belt, okay? Motherfucker could get hurt, motherfucker could lose. You could lose to an up-and-comer, okay? You could lose to an up-and-coming fighter and never get a shot at the belt again. Why not take a fight versus Errol Spence, get that immediate shot at the belt right after you lost it? I think it'd be a good opportunity for Danny Garcia. You know what I mean? But I could see it. I could see the management not really wanting to engage in a fight like that right away and wanting to build Danny Garcia back up. But I can see it both ways. I just don't want no shitty excuses. No matter what happens, don't make up no shitty excuses if you're Danny Garcia, okay? If you want to build yourself back up and you want to do it the right way, you want to do this, you want to do that, let the fans know the truth, okay? We're smart. Most boxing fans are smart enough to be able to say, okay, that makes sense, okay? No shitty excuses. Don't play us for fools. Don't tell us that Errol Spence needs to get a 720 credit rating and he needs to lose 30 pounds and he needs to join the gym or some shit in order to get a fight with you. Don't make up no shitty prerequisite for what Errol Spence needs to do to fight you, okay? If what you want to do is rebuild yourself, then mention that, okay? If not, then you need to take the fight. It really is put up or shut up time for Danny Garcia. Either stand up or lay down here. Okay? There's no in between. Okay? There's no in between. Okay? In most fighters' cases, the in between is, he needs to do this, he needs to do that. There's no in between here. Okay? IBF champion of the world calling you out. You get another shot at the belt. You have no belt. Okay? I done already went through. I'm not going through it again. Anyway, let me know what you guys think. Hit it up in the comment section below. You can be up on Twitter, Box capital X or capital X die. You're going to be up on Facebook, Box -sign or -sign die. Like the video, subscribe, all that bullshit. But until next time, it's your boy D Dynamite signing out. Holla at your motherfucking boy.